The courtroom was a sanctuary of order, a place where the chaotic tapestry of human life was unraveled, examined, and smoothed out by the steady hand of justice. Judge Ebony K. Williams sat upon the bench, her presence a commanding blend of Southern grace and metropolitan sharpness. She had traveled from the red clay of North Carolina through the humid, soulful streets of Louisiana, picking up the unshakable poise of the West Coast and the relentless, fast-paced edge of New York along the way. To her, the courtroom was not merely a room of wood and stone, it was the theater of the American ideal. Freedom and integrity were the twin stars by which she navigated the complexities of the human condition, believing firmly that whether one was black, white, purple, gay, straight, or queer, the law served as the great equalizer. Her gavel was not a hammer, it was a tool for restoration. On this particular day, the air in the court was thick with the residue of broken promises and fractured friendships. The first case of the day featured two young women, Destiny Delgado and Kirsten Hanks, once inseparable friends, now locked in a bitter dispute that had spilled over from the glitz and glamour of a nightlife celebration into the stark reality of litigation. Destiny stood before the judge, her posture rigid with indignation. She was the plaintiff, seeking recompense for a night that had begun with champagne dreams and ended in a sidewalk nightmare. Beside her, or rather as far from her as the courtroom allowed, stood Kirsten, her former best friend, a woman who had once been a breath of fresh air but now represented, in Destiny's eyes, the ultimate betrayal of trust. Judge Ebony K. Williams adjusted her robes, her eyes sweeping over the two women. "You both carry a heavy energy of resentment," she noted, her voice calm yet piercing. "Let us strip away the noise. Miss Delgado, tell the court why we are here." Destiny began, her voice trembling slightly with suppressed anger. "Your Honor, we were best friends. We met in college, we were on the same dance team, we were sisters in every way that mattered. When she moved to North Carolina and eventually returned, I was ecstatic. I had just received a wonderful promotion, and I wanted to celebrate that milestone with the person who knew me best. I invited her and 4 other friends to a club, and I spared no expense to make it perfect. I paid $600 for a VIP table, complete with bottle service, because I wanted us to feel special. We were only there for an hour and a half before everything fell apart." The judge leaned forward, her expression unreadable. "And how did this celebration come to an abrupt end?" Destiny sighed, gesturing vaguely toward Kirsten. "I wanted to dance. My favorite song was playing, and I was ready to celebrate. Kirsten complained that her feet were hurting, so I left her at the table while I went to the dance floor with 2 other friends. Everything was fine until I noticed a commotion back at our section. When I returned, security was escorting Kirsten out. I had no idea what was happening. When the guard asked if I was with her, I had to admit the truth. They threw us all out. I lost my money, I lost my celebration, and I lost my friend in the space of 90 minutes because she could not keep her composure." Judge Ebony turned her gaze toward the defendant. "Miss Hanks, the floor is yours. Why are you in court today?" Kirsten straightened her shoulders, her defiance masking a flicker of vulnerability. "Your Honor, I am here because I am being blamed for an altercation that was not my fault. Yes, I was the one who ended up in a conflict, but it was not because I wanted to ruin anyone's night. I was wearing stiletto, thigh-high boots. They were stunning, but they were killing my feet. I was sitting at the table, trying to enjoy the night, when this man, this absolute stranger, sat down in our VIP section uninvited. He had no wristband, he had no business being there, and he was being incredibly disrespectful. I asked him politely to move, and he put his hand in my face." The judge raised an eyebrow. "You mentioned the term dusty earlier.
What do you mean by that?"
Kirsten shrugged, a smirk playing on her lips. "A dusty is just a person who lacks etiquette and common sense, Your Honor. And he was definitely a dusty. When he refused to leave and put his hand near me, I moved his hand away. Perhaps I was a little more forceful than I intended, but I felt threatened. He was a tall man, a large build, and he was intimidating. Instead of removing him, security chose to remove me and my friends. It was unfair. Judge Ebony listened, her mind weighing the nuances of the narrative. She asked for evidence of the costs incurred. Destiny produced the receipts, confirming the $600 spent on the table and the bottles. The judge looked at the math. Half of the liquor had been consumed before the incident. I see a loss of $600, and I see a friendship that has been severely tested, the judge said, her voice resonant. Miss Hanks, while I understand that you felt threatened, the reality is that your actions, regardless of your intent, directly resulted in the forfeiture of a service your friend had paid for. When you are in a public space, especially when you are sharing an experience that others have invested in, your behavior has consequences that ripple outward. You cannot be the architect of a chaotic situation and expect your friend to bear the financial burden of that chaos. The court finds for the plaintiff, the judge continued, wielding the gavel with authority. Miss Hanks, you are ordered to pay $300 to Miss Delgado. It is exactly half of the loss, a reflection of the shared responsibility of being in that club and the reality of the situation. I hope, for both your sakes, that you can learn to control your impulses in the future, and perhaps, with time, you can find a way back to the sisterhood you once shared. As the two women exited, the air in the courtroom shifted. A new plaintiff stepped forward, his face etched with a deeper, more enduring kind of pain. Arthur Rivera was a man who had weathered the storm of losing a spouse, only to find himself shipwrecked on the shores of a deceptive engagement. Mr. Rivera, you are suing your ex-fiancée, Desi Lewis, for $3,200, the judge stated, reviewing the file. Please explain to the court how you arrived at this position. Arthur took a deep breath, his hands clasped tightly. Your Honor, I am a widower. My late wife always wanted me to find happiness again, and when I met Desi, I believed I had. She was radiant, intelligent, and vibrant. We spoke about the future, about building a life together, and about the practicalities of a household. We agreed on a trade. I would provide for our future, and she would manage the home, ensuring that the house was kept in order and meals were prepared. It was a bargain I was happy to make. He paused, his eyes clouding with memory. We planned our wedding. We put down a non-refundable deposit. 45 days before the wedding, I returned home in the middle of the day, something I never do. I found a crew of people cleaning my house. I thought they were intruders, but it turned out they were a professional cleaning service. Desi had told me she was doing this work, but the truth was she was outsourcing it. That was the first lie. The judge leaned in, her interest piqued. And what was the second lie? Arthur pulled out a stack of papers. The financial deception. I was paying her car note, $535 a month, because she claimed her job as a waitress was not covering her expenses. When I went through the records, I discovered the true cost was only $395. She was padding the cost by $135 every single month. It was never about the cleaning or the money, Your Honor. It was about the fact that our entire relationship was built on a foundation of dishonesty. I could not marry a woman who viewed me as a source of revenue to be exploited rather than a partner to be cherished. Desi Lewis stood to defend herself, her expression one of wounded pride. Your Honor, I did nothing wrong. The house was a massive undertaking, and I needed help to keep up with the standards he expected. I was providing the nurturing environment he asked for, even if I had to hire others to help me achieve it. As for the car payment, I was overwhelmed. I wanted to be transparent, but Arthur is a man who rarely listens when he has already made up his mind. I was just trying to keep my head above water. The judge looked from one to the other, the weight of the testimony pressing down on the room. Marriage is a covenant of trust, not a business transaction, she said firmly. While the practicalities of household management are a matter of agreement, the transparency required for a partnership is absolute. Miss Lewis, by deceiving Mr. Rivera regarding the nature of your activities and the true cost of your financial needs, you eroded the very foundation upon which a marriage is built. Judge Ebony K. Williams paused, allowing the silence to settle. The court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Arthur Rivera, in the amount of $3,200. This judgment represents the return of the deposit for a wedding that was predicated on a facade of truth. It is a small price to pay for the clarity that now allows both of you to walk away and find the paths that are truly meant for you. As the courtroom cleared, the echoes of the proceedings remained. In the realm of equal justice, the law did not concern itself with the complexities of the heart, but it did concern itself with the sanctity of the truth. Whether it was a lost night at a club or a lifetime of promised companionship, the standard remained the same: honesty, integrity, and the willingness to take accountability for the ripples one creates in the lives of others. The judge gathered her papers, her expression serene. Another day, another lesson in the profound and often painful necessity of being accountable to oneself and to those we claim to love. The courtroom lights dimmed, leaving behind the quiet promise that tomorrow, the pursuit of equal justice would begin anew.